Could I ask a question to all of you? Because this is something that I routinely think, and it's not discussed very often, because the word is, we're doing sevens and that's it. That's just the end of the conversation. So in 2013, the Irish Sports Council gave a grant for 1.1 million. So about 10 years ago, Ireland had just won the Grand Slam, imagine that. And the sevens programme was really started. And David Nucifora said at the time, that will allow us grow the game in this country. The sevens programme will allow us grow the game in this country. So 10 years on, has the sevens programme allowed us grow the game in the country? Has it been a success? Is it right that on Six Nations stage, a lot of Ireland's better attacking players are elsewhere? Do we think this is the right way to go about our business? I'm opening this to everyone.
Yeah, look, I suppose, with these sevens girls, a lot of them started out, you know, they might have played a bit 15s, but they focused on their sevens. So that, their main goal was to qualify for the Olympics. And that was put in their head. They probably didn't think about Grand Slams. They didn't think about World Cups. That if they had their focus, and focus is Olympic qualification and getting to the Olympics. So I think back in 2013, what it done was probably separated that, because the player pool in this country we don't have enough players, and it's similar to the men's, to facilitate being the best at sevens and being the best at 15s. And I feel because there was money given at that time, that's what the real focus in. So these players were developed and were on full-time contracts, a lot of them, and they learned how to play sevens. So they're playing since then, and people have come in and out, but they're on full-time skills. They're in practicing the whole time. So when they were moved over, we saw that skill set in 15s, but I suppose it's their focus is the game. And where we've gone wrong, and the IRFU have gone wrong, is kind of separating that, bringing them back in, taking them out. There hasn't been any clear pathway, and players aren't growing up to, you know, some people might nowadays say, I want to grow up and play sevens, whereas we've never kind of had that distinction. It's kind of in, out, here, there, everywhere. And I think that's been the real issue. These players are so talented, and we saw what they done when they came in last season, but their focus is elsewhere, and that's what they're training for.
And I think, like, with that is, like, if you're a sevens player and you enjoy the game and that's what you want to do, then that's fantastic, and you should be given ample support in order to be able to achieve with your national team in that. And the same should be made for 15s.
But do we have the playing population for both? Because I know if Garry, Ringrose and Robbie Henshaw were off playing sevens, the Irish rugby public wouldn't stand for it.
No.
I think then it's like it should be players. It should be a sweet deal for either or. Okay. So it should be very enticing to play sevens if that's what you want to do. Yeah. And it should also be the same for 15s. Like, I remember growing up watching, like, Keith Wood's beautiful spiral kick and being like, oh, I'd love to play that game. That's something that I'd love to do. And the fact that I get to play in a Six Nations is a dream come true. And then for others, it might be looking at the Olympics and sevens, and that might be what they aspire to do. Don't limit. Just make it so that, like, okay, well, that's what you're sticking with, fine. But also make sure that you're not hurting one pathway for the sake of another. Because there's girls in the sevens team.
Has the 15s pathway been hurt in the last decade?
Yeah.
100% has been hurt. I actually owe my comeback, though, to sevens. So, like, in terms of the game, I owe my comeback to rugby, playing rugby through sevens on the talent ID back then. Yeah. And then my comeback to 15s I owe to these guys when they won the 2013 Grand Slam. So there's, like, the both sort of, obviously, the pathways. But two things with David Nucifora. Excellent technical and tactical. He's probably one of the sharpest guys from a, you know, game read and those sorts of things. But from a program to suggest that sevens would be the game to grow in Ireland without having a tournament as such in Ireland wouldn't necessarily make sense. Whereas you have a ready-made, traditional, really important part of the sort of, you know, life game of
it's the culture.
Rugby. Yes, 100%. So it's the cultural capacity that he's missed. That's the only thing. Everything else is actually, he's excellent. He really is, because you have to be ruthless. But the cultural capacity is one thing of an understanding that if you had that, you would then acknowledge and appreciate, which I'm sure he does, but you'd have to acknowledge that 15s is such an inclusive game and super important traditionally for Ireland. Yeah. It's our number one sport.
In rugby, certainly, yeah.
But also sevens obviously have excellent athletes, you know, Stacey Floods, Lucy Mulhalls, Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, the best in the world. So there's two opportunities for girls and women to play. Okay.